I'm Jay. I'm the writer and creator of Into the Nanten. It's a really fun project that was inspired both by my time in West and Central Africa and also by just a long-standing desire to create something episodic, to make something that I could release on the regular, that people could just be a part of. Into the Nanten is the world's first real-time fantasy blog. And when we say real-time fantasy blog, it's kind of ambiguous, so explaining it's kind of the fun part. As the character is writing in his journal, whether he writes at night or the next morning, it posts in real time on the website. So you're basically watching his journal get populated with content as he writes it. Not animated, but you get to see it just almost immediately. And then it coincides with his Twitter account. So as he's tweeting, you see his thoughts over the course of the day, and then he tweets every time that he finishes an entry. And it gives you little previews, but it also gives you kind of a sense of where he's at emotionally or just what's going on. I've always wanted to do something episodic, but I never knew what exactly or how to go about it. And this idea came about from reading a book by Tim Butcher called Blood River, which is his story of trying to navigate the Congo River in modern day DRC, which is just stupid. And that's how he opens up his entire book, is just by saying, this is practically a suicidal desire that I've always had, that everybody I loved wished I wouldn't do, but I was gonna do it anyways. And talking about just how dumb it was, I was like, this is my story. Like, I'll have a guy who's exiled into this situation, not adventuring out of self-gratification, but like out of necessity. And then threw in some elements that I thought would make it more tense. So it's really fun because I keep ahead of it about 2 months. Like, I write in blocks and try to keep it about 2 months ahead so that my illustrator, Nimit, and my narrator, Dennis, both have enough time to work with the material and create what they need to create to make the robust story that we have that is Into the Nanten. So you can follow along day by day in audio or reading it, and then there are illustrations with 1 out of every 2 or 3 entries, and the artwork gives you a little bit more of an insight both into the world but also into Marcellus's emotional state. The narration gives you a real flavor of it because, you know, he's got a very strong international British South African accent that just sounds like a badass when he's in the jungle.
Day 484. We may have called more trouble to ourselves than was wise. The Daedra brought 2 of those monsters and set them loose as they joined battle.
Being able to follow along day by day with that, we hope creates an immersive experience. So the process for me looks like writing in blocks, trying to write like 3 to 5 entries at a time, if not more if I can. Before I even revise it, Nimit usually gets the full amount of what I've written so that he can stay on top of the story, be thinking about it, and be illustrating. And he's producing about 3 illustrations a week, which is a lot, and he does a very good job of it. And then Dennis gets my revised version because he's reading word for word what's going to be on the website. He's getting those in blocks of 10, he's reading it, and then I will give him notes and he'll make changes, and then we put it on the website. You're actually able to subscribe to it as a podcast or listen to it for free on SoundCloud, where we compiled the first journal into a paperback. We also compiled it into a leather-bound journal, which I made myself, as far as like going in and in InDesign creating each entry one at a time, and using a handwritten font, one that we found to be really legible, that I actually skewed each line, pretty much each line individually, adjusted them so they have the kind of a handwritten flow from page to page. So at least at first glance, and hopefully under scrutiny, it feels like a handwritten journal with mud splatters for when they're in wet situations. Like in the rainy season, there's a lot more mud on the pages than in the dry season, or when they're crossing rivers or whatever else, you see kind of more mess. It's just kind of a miracle that he kept it in good condition the whole way through anyways. So what's the value for me? Into the Nanten is both like the most taxing and enjoyable project that I have in a lot of ways, because it engenders a lot of immediate feedback from fans. It's interactive. A number of the major twists have happened because fans thought they were going to happen, and I took their predictions and was like, that does have to happen. It's a great discipline. It forces me to write regularly. It forces me to continue to produce and to continue to work really hard at what it is I want to make. And it's really fun because it's collaborative. So even though at the end of the day, like, I'm directing it and producing it, Nimit has a lot of freedom to create, and Dennis has a lot of freedom to interpret. Together, I feel like we make something better than if it was just me by myself. It's kind of a community experience. Like, as a writer, when you're writing a book, it's really, really lonely, as far as like you're writing something that nobody's going to get to see for a long time, and you're doing it in a vacuum, and by the time people see it, you've kind of moved on in a lot of ways, and there's a separation there. And so for Into the Nanten, it's only a matter of days or months before people are reacting to what it is that I'm writing. And so that's also really rewarding, but it's also it's also mildly stressful because you're seeing an unedited manuscript. It's very much, I mean, it's not a raw first draft, but it's just me. My editor doesn't touch it, my proofreader doesn't touch it. It really pushes me as well then to make sure that I'm doing as good of a job as I can. But it means that everybody gets to see how bad I am at comma usage, which I'm pretty bad at it.